So what you're seeing in the background right now is a boost, and everyone knows what boosting as a concept is, going faster than your original speed. However, in Sonic games, it is one of the main focuses of the gameplay, right? And it is an entire formula for the games, right? And what introduced me to the Sonic series was YouTube originally, right? It is one of the reasons I became a YouTuber because I kind of looked at these people that I watch, and a lot of them did play Sonic when I was younger, and I was like, this is so cool. I could have a bad day and watch these people, and they make my day better. And what I didn't realize at the time was that was slightly tied to the character of Sonic, because being as free as the wind and just being able to run fast has always been cool to me. I was for a time a big fan of the Flash, but as a character, he is conceptually flawed because how do you manage to fight someone who's faster than anything around? And kind of Sonic does get around that because he's fighting robots and aliens half the time. And regardless of that, what really made me love the series was the boost formula, and still is, right? You have a button where you can go faster, and it makes a really cool effect. It makes you feel fast as all hell. But what really makes the boost formula is when it's done right. And that is kind of the topic of this video. And it is the reason I made this passion project video, which is why it is in the passion project folder, obviously. So, to get to my point, you kind of need some background. So, Sonic originally didn't have boost. Sonic Adventure 1, Sonic Adventure 2, and then Sonic 06, they were the first three proper 3D Sonic games. And they didn't have the boost, they had the spin dash or other things, they were more momentum based. But Sonic 06 was kind of heralded as this terrible game because very buggy at the start, when it was released. And in fairness, there was a bit of an odd point in the story where one of the main characters kissed Sonic, and she was a human, so it was it's kind of weird and frowned upon. But as of Project 06, that's being redeemed, by the way. And, I will probably get around to making a video on that and playing it at some stage in the future. But Sega looked and they were like, oh dear, we are going to lose this series and possibly our studio because of how badly this game went. We had a reputation for amazing games, and now we've released this. We need to fix it. And what they thought was the best way to fix it was, and it was the best way to fix it, was to release Sonic Unleashed. And when looking at the game, it was originally called Sonic World Adventure because they wanted to tie it in with the Sonic Adventure series, because they saved the game after, saved the series as they transitioned from 2D. And to put it quite simply, they said, right, what do people like, and what can we introduce to make this game have a gimmick? Because as of Unleashed, I believe, every game has a new gimmick that makes it unique. With Colors, it is the Wisps. With Generations, it was the celebration of the series and how every level had something unique. And, Forces, we don't talk about Forces. It was my first Sonic game, but even I can, admit that it was a terribly made game. Game design there was not it, but the point is every game has had a gimmick and you can tie it to that game. And Sonic Unleashed was kind of the first game to have that. And they looked at the game and they were like, right, what can we add? They added the boost, which was originally in a handheld game. I believe it was Sonic Rush Advanced or something, or along those lines. And what made the boost formula work so well is they kind of took the philosophy of the game design from that game around the boost, where you had to earn it first of all. It wasn't just you pressed the button and boosted the whole level. Obviously not, they're not going to do that. But you had to pick up rings, and what added to that was the fact that there is a risk to using the boost. For example, if you're playing a stage and you're boosting, you're going through a lot faster than you would just running normally. But it also makes it harder to dodge any upcoming obstacles. So, there is high risk, high reward. You're running, and say there's a step. If you're not fast enough, you're going to run into that, you're going to stop, you're going to lose all your speed. And, that could be what costs you an S rank. And that is how a boost formula should be done. Whether it is a Flash game or a Sonic game, a boost should never just be free speed. It either has to be earned and used up, or in Sonic's case, you can keep it going the whole level, but you have to replay and you have to master the level, and that is your reward, being able to boost through the whole thing. It is a reward, not something you were just given, handed out. Your reward for using the boost smart is fast speed. If you do an air boost in the right place, skipping somewhere. It is never just something you can spam the whole level and get away with. You always have to earn the speed and earn the boost and earn what the boost has got you. And that is the perfect rendition of a boost formula. Because if you were just getting free speed and you were just getting a reward for pressing a button, that is not a good formula. Because at the end of the day, that is what fucking Sonic Forces was. They went and they effectively made you watch a YouTube video for 2.5 hours or however long it takes you to complete that story. And all the boost did was speed that up slightly. I will not deny it had some pretty cool concepts that were done terrible. The game design was not there. Interesting enough story, but kind of ruined themselves. And I will forever, be a fan of the series. Sonic has always been a character I found cool. Originally because fast, now because being as free as the wind and his philosophy as a character is really interesting to me and something I like to think I live by myself. But the point is, the boost formula was done perfect in Unleashed, and what Sega never realized is they had it perfect the first time round. If they just kept that in Generations, kept it in Forces, kept it in Colors, kept it in every game after, they would have been perfect. And that's not me dissing Frontiers, but Frontier cyberspace levels should have at least had a normal boost, because dear lord were they terrible, in my opinion, because I felt incredibly slow playing them. And then obviously I upgraded my character speed, fixed that's grand, but the perfect rendition of the boost formula, in my opinion, is Sonic Unleashed, because again, you have high risk, high reward. If you are going to boost your way through the stage and you lose all that time, obviously you want to come back and give the stage a proper try. And that is one of the main things that has the series around today. The replayability of every Sonic game is unmatched, because there's always a path that you haven't taken, or there's always something you can improve upon. You can jump over a step that you hit the last time, get an extra 2 seconds. You can replay the level and you can find a new path, you can do it better, you can do it faster, you can go, right, how can I do this better? And that is what makes the game replayable, because you can express yourself and you can also find a way to do what you've done before but better. With a lot of games, they don't have that. It's just play it through once and you're kind of done. The only thing I would consider really similar to how people just play Sonic games over and over again for the gameplay would be Spider-Man itself. I like to swing around sometimes, and there was this whole community made just around stylistically swinging in Spider-Man games, and I will always think that's really cool. You've innovated and you've taken a character I've loved and made your own thing out of him, and one of his best rendition in gaming, and that's cool. And it is one of the things that kind of connects it to Sonic as a series. There's always replayability. They have made their movement and just literal character so enjoyable to play that you don't even need a story or a reason to play. You can just play because you like how the character moves, and that is how a game should be. Your character, you succeeded when you can just mess around and use one of the systems in the game. With Sonic, that is the running in these stages in Unleashed, or just the running in general in most stages in the games. Or in Spider-Man, where the swinging is just so fun, and there's so many different ways to express yourself with that. Whether you turn the swing assist down to 0 or turn it back up to 10. That is what makes the game so amazingly good. There's a way to express yourself in the boost where, some people can just go full speed straight ahead. Some people can do these speedrun tricks to go through the map, skip it. Some people can just run without the boost. There's always a way to, you know, pick someone out and pick yourself out from the rest of everyone that plays the game and find something that makes you unique and expand upon that in your gameplay style. And that is so beautiful to me, because gaming is, so many people's escape from, the shitty world that we live in. And being able to express yourself in such a unique and individual way as you can in Sonic or in Spider-Man is so amazing to have. And as much as Sega have squandered the series in many different occasions, the fact that they stuck to their guns and have done so well by the series is actually admirable. Like, some people don't like Sega because, big corporate company, right? And while I can understand the hate towards them, especially with companies like EA, who prioritize money over player enjoyment, which is wrong, really fucking wrong. Sega make Sonic, and they make it for the players. They genuinely want the players to have a good time and be able to express themselves. And that is how gaming should be. A company should never be focused on, obviously, right, you need the money to keep the company running, but that should never be your main priority. And that is kind of what has held so many companies back, which is why games like Apex were ruined. Games have been known to be ruined by microtransactions, or the companies going, right, we need cash, let's throw in something really scummy in here, possibly make the game worse. Or FIFA, like, just look at FIFA, for example. Every year, same shit, different toilet, right? Same game. Every once in a while, you'll have a new graphics engine or a new camera. For 25 years, FIFA has been the exact same game, possibly longer. That's not how a game should be. And I will always credit Sonic on this. Every Sonic game has something that makes them that individual Sonic game. And the stories behind them are really good. One of my favorite games, and my favorite game, has always been Sonic Unleashed. It's my favorite game of the Sonic series, arguably one of my favorite games alongside, Insomniac's original Spider-Man. They are on the top of my list because they are arguably peak gaming. You have a good story, you have a new style of game that has been perfected and, has been done so well, and just gets expanded upon in the entries afterwards. What made Spider-Man such an interesting game by, the Insomniac Spider-Man, wasn't just how good they made the story, but also the fact that they, revolutionized web swinging. Well, yes, it wasn't as fast as, Spider-Man 2 on whatever it was, the PS2, PS3. I never played it because I was too young. I wasn't around back then, I don't think. Or I was like a fucking toddler, so I wasn't playing those games. But they took a series people loved and did right by it. And that is what Sonic as a series has done. And Sonic Team put so much love into Sonic Generations. They made an entire new engine. Every time you load it up, you see the Hedgehog engine. That is an entirely new visual engine just so they could make this game the best it could be. Right? And I am never going to deny Sega have done good by the Sonic series. And as much as they didn't realize it, they had Unleashed and they perfected the boost formula from the first iteration into 3D. But that's just my opinion. You're very entitled to yours, and I really do hope you share yours in the comments. And also, you guys just have a chat and, talk about what you enjoy about Sonic as a series. And thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.